The music you just heard is your invitation to settle and prepare for our worship service. Please put your phones in airplane mode, as that helps to keep them quiet, but also, maybe more importantly, helps the live stream for our siblings to watch the services at home. Please know that whoever you are and wherever you're from and whomever you love and wherever you are in life's journey, that you are welcome here. Good morning. Good morning. All right. Welcome to San Gabriel Universalist Unitarian Fellowship. Welcome, whether you are here in the sanctuary or watching at home, or whether you are here for the first time or the 1000th time. We're glad you're here. My name is Mark Vi. I'm honored to be serving as your lay leader today, and I'd like to take a quick opportunity to hope and wish you all a very genuine and meaningful holiday season. San Gabriel is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and we are a movement working for a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. Sustaining each other here in community is one part of that work.
Good morning. I'm Eric Hepburn. I'm your pulpiteer. Honored to be here this morning, as Mark said, as we head into the holiday season. Please join me in reciting the words to light our chalice. We light this flame to remind us that love is the center. As we grow and connect, mature and deepen, love remains the center. When the light of truth burns all else away, love remains. Let us greet this day in song. Our opening hymn is Amazing Grace, number 205 in the gray hymnal. The lyrics will be projected. Please rise in body or spirit as you're able.
I
Sometimes we're carrying something on our heart that can prevent us from being fully present. Here in this community, our sharing of these things with each other is medicine, is healing. Like all good medicine, it should be concentrated, so I entreat you to aim at 3 strong sentences. So if you're carrying a joy or a sorrow or both on your heart this morning, I invite you to share by raising your hand for the microphone. In this time, while one of us is practicing the vulnerability of praise or grief, the rest of us are practicing the gifts of presence and deep listening. It's time for our Wonder Box. Do I have a volunteer to bring the Wonder Box forward today? Oh, it looks like Mr. Woody Hibbard's going to be my volunteer today. All right. There's an object in the Wonder Box. That's one clue. There's also a written clue. This week's clue is the boundary may be red or green. Thank you, my dear Woody. The boundary may be red or green, but it's not a Christmas thing. Inside sweetness, outside the world. You guys told me the hint last time was too easy, so. What's that? An apple. Would I do that? Would I do the same object 2 weeks in a row? Oh, I would. I'm trying to trick you guys. That tricksy puppeteer. All right. Yep, 2 weeks in a row. Well, here is a story about an apple and a very hungry caterpillar. In the light of the moon, a little egg lay on a leaf. One Sunday morning, the warm sun came up, and pop! Out of the egg came a tiny and very hungry caterpillar. He started to look for some food. On Monday, he ate through 1 apple, but he was still hungry. On Tuesday, he ate through 2 pears, but he was still hungry. On Wednesday, he ate through 3 plums, but he was still hungry. On Thursday, he ate through 4 strawberries, but he was still hungry. On Friday, he ate through 5 oranges, but he was still hungry. On Saturday, he ate through 1 piece of chocolate cake, 1 ice cream cone, 1 pickle, 1 slice of Swiss cheese, 1 slice of salami, 1 lollipop, 1 piece of cherry pie, 1 sausage, 1 cupcake, and 1 slice of watermelon. That night, he had a stomach ache. The next day was Sunday again. The caterpillar ate through 1 nice green leaf, and after that, he felt much better. Now, he wasn't hungry anymore, and he wasn't a little caterpillar anymore. He was a big, fat caterpillar. He built a small house called a cocoon around himself. He stayed inside for more than 2 weeks. Then he nibbled a hole in the cocoon, pushed his way out, and he was a beautiful butterfly. The end. So the lesson for this week, kids, after you have a stomach ache from Christmas dinner, eat a salad the next day. The official interpretation of this story. And now, as our anthem this morning, we have Star from Les Mis, performed by Mel Moss and Jackie Carish.
Out in the darkness, a fugitive running, fallen from grace, fallen from grace. God be my witness, I never shall yield till we come face to face, till we come face to face. He knows his way in the dark. Mine is the way of the Lord, and those who follow the path of the righteous shall have their reward. And if they fall as Lucifer fell, the flame, the sword, stars in your multitudes, scarce to be counted, filling the darkness with order and light. You are the sentinels, silent and sure, keeping watch in the night, keeping watch in the night. You know your place in the sky. You hold your course and your aim, and each in your season returns and returns, and is always the same. And if you fall as Lucifer fell, you fall in flame. And so it has been, and so it is written on the doorway to paradise, that those who falter and those who fall must pay the price. Lord, let me find him, that I may see him, safe behind bars. I will never rest till then. This I swear by the stars.
All right. All children and youth wishing to go to their groups are welcome to exit. Everyone else, will you join me in singing them out?
I invite you into a place of deeper stillness and reflection with these excerpts from Prentis Hemphill. The path forward, or the work to do, is always how we can be in relationship with one another. And I do think that takes boundaries. Boundaries give us the space to do the work of loving ourselves. They might be actually the first and fundamental expression of self-love. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously.
Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. Back a few months ago when we did a question box and I asked you to give me some things to talk about, one of the most challenging questions in that box was, how do I deal with toxic people in my life, toxic people in my family? And I think these quotes about boundaries start to set the stage for an answer to a challenging question like that. You see, because of the way family hierarchies tend to work in our culture, we have shown up to those whom we love and who love us, but whom nonetheless might be unhealthy and abusive, and we have felt called to stay in that out of a sense of obligation, out of a sense of deference to age and authority, or the way that that relationship is supposed to be, despite how it actually is. So this idea that the boundary is the distance at which I can love that person and continue to love myself might be a hint at how we start to find some balance in that. Prentis tells a story in the book of meeting with her estranged father after 10 years. She says, he got too comfortable and he started laying into my mom again. And I felt in my body that the heart that had been opening and softening toward him in our earlier conversation began to close and harden. And that was my body telling me that I had reached the place where I needed to set a boundary. That to stay there and listen to this refreshed vitriol that was carried about a past relationship was poisonous to her. And that it was time for her to say, thanks, Dad, it's been a great lunch. I've got to be somewhere. And you get up and you leave. You see, it's a way of creating space and distance. And we can imagine a couple of different ways that she might have responded to this moment. We can imagine her reacting angrily to her father. You know, Dad, I don't want to hear this about Mom. I'm going to now make you wrong and let you know that I think that what you're doing is wrong. And we're going to start the cycle of fighting all over again. The cycle of fighting that led to them being estranged for 10 years. We're going to start that all over again. But you see, she had learned something in those intervening 10 years through her work with somatics, which is, I don't have to make you wrong. I just have to claim the space I need for me to stay in right relationship with me. So I don't think this is the only way, but I think it's one tool that we can start to develop when there are people and influences in our life that drain our energy, that drag us into a negative reactive space, when there are people in our life who are toxic. My father and I were estranged for 20 years. And when my mother was dying of cancer, they had been divorced for a long time. But when my mother was dying from cancer, I got a call from my father out of the blue. And this was how the call went. I just wanted to call and tell you that I'm sorry. And he listed a few things that he was genuinely sorry for. And then he said, I just wanted you to know that. And he hung up. And that was the beginning of the repair of our relationship. You see, because I was in my early 40s, and I had never heard those words from his mouth before. Maybe you have some people in your life who don't seem to know those two words, who have never been sorry for much, or certainly not expressed it to you. And sometimes when that happens, we build up a backlog of apologies that we're anxiously waiting for. So you see, apology is a way of healing something that's broken. Maybe we'll have a sermon on that in the spring. It's worth its own sermon, the art of a good apology. You see, people do change every day. Sometimes we get better. Sometimes we get worse. Sometimes it's a bit hard to tell which way we're headed. But repairs are possible. And sometimes they're still not enough. Sometimes the relationship can only get so deep because of where two people are. So maybe it's not a relationship where you talk on the phone every 2 or 3 days. Maybe it's once a month. Maybe it's once a quarter. Maybe it's we talk on Thanksgiving and Christmas and birthdays, and that's enough. I'm not here to tell you what the right distance is for the toxic person who you love the most. And you see, here's the crux of it. The ones we love the most who are also toxic, that's what hurts the most, isn't it? I think I got a tab in here about this. Charles Feltman, author of The Thin Book of Trust, describes trust this way: as choosing to make something you value vulnerable to another person's actions. Trust is a risk we take with one another to do something bigger than we could have done alone. So being in relationship is like that. It's choosing to put our own emotional well-being partly in the control to make it vulnerable to another human being. But there is a sense in which trust is also earned. We can tell how well they will care for our tender, gentle heart by how they handle it when it is in their care. And maybe the definition of a toxic person is, I can't trust them to hold my heart at all. Or maybe it is, well, if we only get together briefly and every so often, I can be open to them for a little while before it starts to give you that feeling. That, oh boy, I got to get out of here. Boy, I wish I was anywhere else but here. Feeling. Here's the thing. Many of you, like me, were probably raised to think that our feelings about these things were less important than what society expected about the nature of the relationship. This is especially true of parents and children. What does it mean to honor thy mother and father? What does that look like? What does it look like when the person who is supposed to hold your heart the safest doesn't have the skills they need to do that? How can you still honor them when they are not trustworthy with your most valued and precious self? For some of them, probably most of them, just a little bit at a time. But in prioritizing social expectations over our own feelings, we learn to mistrust ourselves, to set those healthy boundaries where they need to be, to reclaim some space. Prentis tells another story at the very beginning of the chapter of this book. As y'all, for those of you who don't know, today is a Congregational Read Sunday, and we're reading What It Takes to Heal by Prentis Hemphill, and we're on chapter 4. So if you're new and visiting, and you think you might want to come visit us again, in January we'll be reading chapter 5, so you can catch up. But she's talking about her experience as a young black girl walking through the mall and getting ping-ponged off people, like having to constantly dodge to avoid the adults, and the counsel that she got from an older friend who said, just pick a line on the floor and stick to it. They will notice you and move out of your way. And it was a first act for her of reclaiming some space and some agency in a world where she felt she was at everyone else's mercy. So if that's a metaphor for how we show up in our lives, what does it mean to find our line on the floor and walk it? What does that look like? I think one of the things that it looks like is getting clear within yourself about what your values and priorities are. That's your line. And you may get bumped into if you walk that line. You almost certainly will. But you will also find people who will walk in companionship with you on that line. And you will find people who will move out of your way and respect and understand why you have chosen that line to walk. Those who respect the line that you walk, we might call companions on our journey. One of the things that my wife and I still struggle to practice is when we meet new people and are trying to develop friendship networks, it's, well, when we leave that interaction, do we feel more alive than when we started? Or do we feel depleted? We all know this experience, right? Sometimes there are some people you spend time with and you leave the interaction and you think, oh, that was just exhausting. I feel worse about myself. I feel worse about the world. I feel just worse than I did when we started. But sometimes we don't trust that our own sensibility about people's either toxicity or compatibility is worthy enough to be honored. There's a story from the book that we're reading with the Board of Trustees. It's a book called Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. And she tells the following story. She says, my husband and I had just gotten married, and it was my first birthday with him as a married couple. And my family, her family, I'm speaking as Brené, my family had a tradition of making a big deal out of birthdays. So you'd wake up in the morning and there'd be signs and decorations in the house and presents hidden, and it was a big deal, and we made a big deal out of it. And I got up this morning just expectant, and nothing. And I was so mad, and so the next day I was with my therapist, and I told her, I said, well, this is how he did it, and he didn't do anything, and I don't think he cares, and I don't think he loves me. And the therapist said, well, wait a minute, did you tell him about your family tradition? Well, if I have to tell him, it's just not worth it. Now, a good therapist is worth a lot. The therapist looked at her and said, maybe if you didn't tell him, it's because you don't think you're worth it. Oh, flip the scales, right? If we don't care enough about ourselves to articulate our needs and wants to those in our life who might be able to grant them, it might not be the disservice from them that we think it is. So, as we're talking about labeling other people toxic, I think we also have to show up to that, asking the hard question, what is my part? Am I part of what I perceive as toxic? And sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes it's no. But usually it's not at either ends of that spectrum. Usually it's somewhere in the middle. Usually we have a part in it. And what we can do, what we are called to do, is take ownership for our part in it. Dad, I'm happy to meet with you. And I'm looking forward to being in relationship again. But we can't talk about your relationship with Mom from back in my childhood. I want to take that off the table. I don't think that's a productive space for us to be in. Is that okay with you? Can you agree to that? Now, because Dad might not know, Dad might think, oh, you were there too, and you thought it was as awful as I think it is. And so now we can bond over this. How would he know otherwise? You have to think enough of yourself to say, this is what I need this to look like. This is what I'm up for in this adventure, and this is what I'm not up for yet, maybe ever. Unvoiced expectations are not the other person's problem. They're our problem. And it's harder than it sounds, isn't it? I can see brains out there working. That's a good thing. It might require you to spend some time getting clear about what it is you do and don't want. It might require you to spend some time unpacking the way things have always been in your family and asking whether that's a tradition that you want to continue in your life or your own family. It is the way that things were done with you. Is it the way that you want things to continue to be after you? Is it a lesson? Is it a way of being in the world worthy of being passed on to the next generation? Chances are that if it hurt you, it probably isn't a tradition worth saving. There's another name for that. We call it the transmission of intergenerational trauma. So that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is the following truism. Everybody's doing the best they can with what they have. It's a statement that invites you to generate deep compassion for everyone, including yourself. But it can also be misused. It can also be used as an excuse to not do your work, to accept the status quo as forever and always and inevitable. You recreate the status quo in your own life every day through your own choices. That is the simple yet profound truth of human life and of life as we know it. You recreate the status quo every day in your own life through how you show up. That is your part. So in a culture like ours, you have to work to be anti-patriarchal or anti-misogynist or anti-racist or anti-status, class, caste, all of it. All of that stuff is in the cultural waters that we swim in. And if you just do what everybody else has been doing, you perpetuate that stuff. To swim against the stream takes work. And over again, I feel like it's my job up here in the pulpit to invite you to that work. But it tends to feel awful serious sometimes, doesn't it? That work. Overwhelming, out of reach, depressing. Here's one of the things I'm going to transition right now. Right now, I'm going to start making the swing toward the holidays. Are you ready? If you don't find the joy in the work, you're doing it wrong. If you're thinking about this as a burden that you have to figure out how to carry, in addition to all the other burdens, it's going to stay stuck just like it is. It's not an extra backpack you have to put on to climb up the already hard mountain you're on. It is the realization that 7 of the 18 backpacks you're carrying are BS. And you can stop, take them off, put them on the trail, and leave them behind. And as a matter of fact, that trail that you thought you had to take up the hardest part of the mountain to prove your worth isn't the only trail. Ends up right over here, there's a trail. Might be a little bit longer walk, but there are birds chirping. It goes through an alpine meadow where there are sunshines and flowers, and you can see the dripping of the glacier coming down the mountain. There's all kinds of beauty for you to see and all kinds of joy for you to experience on this journey. Well, I'm not asking you to pick up a new burden. I'm asking you to look at the burdens you're still carrying and ask which ones you can leave behind. I'm going to leave behind the story that I'm not worthy enough to walk my own line through Dillard's. I'm going to leave behind the story that it's all on me to make things right with that person in my family who I experience as toxic. I'm going to leave behind the story that if I don't have so-and-so's approval, I can't ever be happy. I'm just going to leave it behind. I don't need that story anymore. It's not true now. It wasn't true when I learned it. It ain't going to get true later. What can you lay down today? What baggage can you abandon as we head into this holiday season? What thing are you carrying on your heart that was absolutely going to come up at a holiday party and make your experience of that holiday party 10 times worse than it has to be, because you had to carry that old bag into the party and you had to open it up and unpack it among a group of your friends and let them know. Do you see this rock? Do you know how heavy it is? I have been carrying this rock for 19 years, and it just keeps getting heavier. Unbelievable. And underneath it, I got this big bag of sand. Oh, it's so heavy. You would not believe it. And I had to walk up the most difficult part of the mountain. Did you know that? We're at crossroads all the time, where we get to choose how to show up and what to bring with us. All the time, every day. What are you carrying? Are you carrying the stuff that you need? Are you carrying the stuff that somebody else told you you had to carry? Have you stopped to wonder if maybe they were wrong, that you have to carry that thing? It's a strange paradox, but I think that self-worth, when truly actualized, lets you know that you can go on the hike without a lot of baggage because you'll still be there. And you are reliable and beautiful and valuable and trustworthy and all you ever really needed and all you ever really have. That and the relationships you build with others. You can't take anything else with you. But I have a deep suspicion that those things persist in ways we have yet to understand. Let's see if one of these other bookmarks is calling to me. Our relationships can be full of everything life is. Our relationships can be powerful places of transformation. It only takes moving out from underneath what is expected and into what is real. All right, this was a Congregational Read Sunday, so before we do the offering, I'm going to pass the mic and see if there are any other parts of this chapter that called to other folks. Anybody have something they'd like to share?
Hi, I'm Gil Douglas. This was pretty awesome, and yes, I am going to get the book and read it. I'm a little behind there, but no, it's a very, very important thing to hear and a wonderful presentation. It reminds me of two things I already knew. One was Maya Angelou saying, in essence, don't think about the bad things of the past, it's not worth it. And think about today and focus on the good stuff. And the near future, not the very far future, you can't deal with that anyway. The other is His Holiness Dalai Lama, who I actually met in person in Rice University half a century ago. And that is, he was talking to a Christian person who was asking him about Buddhism, and he said, well, you told me about what this person Jesus is like, and I'm okay, I'm fine with that. He said, if you don't have to listen to my practice and my Buddhism and follow it I'm not trying to convert you. What I'll tell you is every mountain has a lot of trails to the top, and you pick one that makes your life matters. I'll remember that to the rest of my life. But this brought it back to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Gil. Anyone else like to share this morning? All right. Anybody feeling troubled this morning? You want to tell us about it? It's all right. You're not obligated. But if this isn't a safe space to do it, I don't know what one looks like.
Hey everybody, if I had a nickel from my past for every single time somebody wanted I expected fill in the blank, I wouldn't be a rich man, but I would have a lot of nickels. That was an excellent description about the whole birthday thing. That's why I had the reaction that I did. It's just way too many times with stuff like that. We need to communicate. If you have expectations, if you have desires, hopes, that's fine, but we need to talk.
Thank you, TJ. All right. I'm not ready to wrap up yet, so I'm not going to talk at you anymore, though. We're going to do this thing. Close your eyes. Get seated in your seat. Find a body position that's comfortable for you. I want you to sit with yourself long enough to find one thing that you can lay down this holiday season. Just one thing you've been carrying. You might not leave it here on the sanctuary floor today. You might need to have a conversation with a loved one or a therapist, or you might have to go to a grave site and talk to someone who's gone. But I want you to find something that you're carrying that is at least 98% burden. And I want you to know that you are worthy enough and valuable enough and wise enough to sit that down and let it be part of your past so that it does not have to be part of your future. I don't know what that looks like for you. But I want you to know that because of my love for you and the love that surrounds you in this sanctuary today from all of your siblings, that you are supported in the hard choice to unclench your hand from around that thing you've been clinging to lay it down and to feel the joy that comes in the aftermath, the realization of just one more degree of freedom in your life. You deserve that. And it is a hard practice. Amen.
That was heavy, but very good. Thank you. We take an offering each week to sustain this spiritual home and to support the work of our fellowship. If you're visiting, you are invited to fill out a card and either put it on the platter or the table at the back of the room. And today for the offertory music, we have Joy to the World by Handel. Thank you. The offering will now be gratefully received. Thank you.
Here you go, Mark. It is time for the sharing of gratitudes and announcements. So if you have a gratitude for your siblings that you'd like to express or an announcement that you'd like to share, please raise your hand for the microphone.
And you won't believe what this one's going to be. Diane Dancer I don't see this morning, but when COVID started, the Habitat team was the only group that was still on campus, usually 2 or 3 times a week. So she started putting out the trash cans since she came on Monday. She has done that since COVID started until the last couple of months when she was told she should stop it. And so we're still getting the trash cans out, but then they sit there until somebody else comes back. So I'm asking, and the team is asking, everybody in the congregation, if you show up after the trash is collected on Tuesday afternoon and the recycle, please look over there near the edge of the parking lot of the street and pull the empty cans back into, we keep them right inside the gate of the little house. And so everybody could do that, so we're good neighbors and we don't leave our trash cans out for 4 days. Diana did it. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy.
Good morning. On Sunday, January 12th, we're going to have an orientation for anybody that wants to learn more about our congregation. We've got a clipboard up here on the table if you want to put your name on it, or you can send me an email and there's an announcement about it in the little sheet. Thanks.
Good morning, I'm Rob Berthold. About a month ago, Eric made an appeal from the pulpit for donations to support our RE program. His initial ask was for $5,000. I am pleased to tell you that as of this past week, actually this weekend, we have donations and pledges totaling $16,600 to support our RE program. So thank you to all the donors who have been so generous for this. I'm also pleased to announce that we have a candidate who's applied to be our DRE, who we'll be interviewing today.
Later today. Yep.
Later today. Okay. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks. And just to follow up on what Pat said, if you are not a member and you'd like to learn more about the congregation, we will have that meeting on January 12th. Am I saying the date right? And we are interviewing, doing a DRE interview today. Fingers crossed, feeling good about it. 2 other announcements. I didn't see any more hands. Am I stepping on anybody? All right, fair. Next week, we will have a special holiday service hosted by our children and the choir. So really excited, looking forward to that. For those of you who are not traveling this holiday season, we will be here in the sanctuary, 5 p.m. for a Christmas Eve service. Not heavy. I'm just telling, for those of you who are like, dude, don't ask me to put down a load on Christmas Eve. You can show up Christmas Eve. We're going to sing hymns, do a traditional Christmas story, and experience some joy together. Straight up, simple Christmas Eve. So please come if you're in town. Would love to see you. In the spirit of that, our second hymn is Deck the Halls, number 235 in the gray hymnal. before Mark does our affirmation, I do have one more thing. One of the things that we're going to let go of today is these gates of grief that are posted around. This was a practice that we did after the election to express the grieving and loss that this community experienced on our own behalf and on behalf of our siblings in the country and around the world for whom we are concerned. But we're going to take those down today. So if you are new or if you have not had a chance to read what your siblings wrote on the wall, I invite you to do that today during coffee hour. Thank you.
As we prepare to return to the world, we remind ourselves through our affirmation to carry our work from this place to every corner of our lives. Please join me in the call and response. Love is the doctrine of this church.
We are here to love.
The quest of truth is its sacrament.
We are here to learn.
Service is its prayer.
We are here to care for others.
To dwell together in peace.
We are here to live in peace.
To seek knowledge in freedom.
We are here to honor our differences.
To serve humanity in fellowship.
We are all connected in spirit.
To end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine.
We are here to grow.
Thus do we covenant with one another.
This we promise to do together.
Please join me in reciting the words to extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame to remind us love is the center. As we explore and rest, engage and heal, love remains the center. We all, in cold ashes, love remains.
I leave you this morning with this benediction. May you find questions more profound than answers, play more proficient than mastery, vulnerability more powerful than invincibility, supplication more productive than control, and a peace that passeth all understanding. Go in peace.